The first thing Armin felt that morning was the heat of the pavement pressing through his worn-out shoes, as if the earth itself was reminding him that he had nowhere left to run. The city was already alive, loud and unforgiving under the harsh daylight, but inside him, everything felt eerily silent, like a life paused mid-breath. He stood at the edge of a crowded street, clutching a crumpled envelope that held the last rejection he could bear, and for a moment, he wondered if this was where his story quietly disappeared. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Echoes the Stories. You never know whose life might change because of a story like this. Armin had not always been invisible. There was a time when his name carried warmth, when his mother would call him from the doorway of their small home, her voice filled with pride and expectation. He had been the boy who stayed up late studying under a flickering bulb, dreaming of becoming someone who could lift his family out of the shadows of struggle. But life, as it often does, had its own plans. After his father passed away unexpectedly, the fragile balance of their lives collapsed. Debt piled up like storm clouds, and Armin, still too young to understand the weight of it all, found himself stepping into a world that did not wait for grief to pass. Years slipped by like sand through his fingers. Jobs came and went, each one promising stability but delivering disappointment. He worked in shops, warehouses, construction sites, anywhere that would take him, but nothing lasted. Employers saw him as replaceable, another face in a long line of desperate men. And with each rejection, something inside him dimmed. Still, he kept going, because stopping meant facing the terrifying possibility that he had no purpose left. That morning, however, felt different. The envelope in his hand carried the weight of finality. It was from a company he had pinned his last hope on, a position he had prepared for with everything he had left. He had walked miles to the interview, rehearsed answers in his mind until they felt like truth, and for a brief moment, he had allowed himself to believe. But belief, he was learning, could be cruel. As he stood there, lost in the noise of the city, a sudden commotion broke through his thoughts. A young boy had tripped near the curb, his small body sprawled awkwardly on the ground as people hurried past without stopping. Armin hesitated, his own pain momentarily colliding with the scene before him. Something instinctive stirred within him, something that hadn't yet been crushed by life's relentless weight. He stepped forward, gently helping the boy up, brushing the dust off his clothes. The boy's eyes, wide and frightened at first, softened with relief. In that simple moment, Armin felt something shift, a faint echo of the person he used to be. The boy's mother rushed over, gratitude spilling across her face, her voice trembling with thanks. Armin nodded quietly, unsure how to respond, but as they walked away, he noticed the boy turning back, waving at him with a smile so pure it felt like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. It was a small moment, almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things, yet it lingered. For the first time in weeks, Armin didn't feel entirely empty. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness was the first thread in a tapestry that would slowly begin to reshape his life. The day carried on, relentless as ever. Armin wandered through the streets, unsure of where to go, his feet moving more out of habit than intention. Hunger gnawed at him, but he ignored it, focusing instead on the rhythm of the city, the constant motion that seemed to mock his stillness. Eventually, he found himself near a small roadside cafe, the kind that most people overlooked. The scent of freshly baked bread drifted through the air, pulling him closer despite his empty pockets. He lingered outside, watching as customers came and went. Inside, a woman moved with quiet efficiency, her presence calm yet commanding. There was something about the way she worked, focused, unhurried, that caught his attention. It wasn't just the cafe, it was the feeling of it, like a place where time slowed down just enough to breathe. Armin didn't realize how long he had been standing there until the woman noticed him. Their eyes met briefly, and for a moment, he considered walking away. But something in her expression stopped him. It wasn't pity or judgment, it was curiosity, the kind that saw beyond appearances. She stepped outside, her voice gentle yet direct. She didn't ask for explanations or offer empty sympathy. Instead, she simply asked if he was looking for work. The question caught him off guard. He had heard it before, but never like this, never without an underlying sense of doubt. Armin hesitated, unsure how to respond. He had grown used to rejection, to the quiet dismissal that followed his attempts to find stability. But there was something different here, something that made him want to try again, even if it meant risking another disappointment. He nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman introduced herself as Zareen, the owner of the cafe. She explained that she needed help, nothing glamorous, just basic tasks to keep the place running. It wasn't much, but it was something. And sometimes, something is all a person needs to start again. The days that followed were not easy. Armin struggled at first, his confidence worn thin by years of setbacks. Simple tasks felt overwhelming, and he often doubted whether he deserved this opportunity. But Zareen was patient, guiding him without making him feel inadequate. She saw his effort, even when he couldn't see it himself. Gradually, things began to change. Armin started to find a rhythm, a sense of purpose that had been missing for so long. The cafe became more than just a workplace, it became a refuge, a place where he could rebuild the pieces of himself that had been broken. There were moments of doubt, of course. Nights when he lay awake, haunted by memories of failure, questioning whether this newfound stability was real or just another temporary illusion. But each morning, he returned to the cafe, and with each passing day, the weight of his past seemed to lift just a little. What surprised him most was how the smallest interactions began to matter. A regular customer thanking him for his service, a child laughing at something he said, the simple act of being seen and acknowledged, these moments, once taken for granted, now felt profound. They reminded him that his existence had value, that he was more than the sum of his struggles. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the cafe windows, Armin found himself reflecting on how far he had come. It wasn't a dramatic transformation, not the kind that stories often celebrate. It was quiet, gradual, almost imperceptible. But it was real. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel hopeful. If this story is touching your heart, take a moment to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Stories like these live on through your engagement, and your support helps keep them alive for others who might need them. But life, even in its moments of renewal, doesn't forget to test those who dare to hope. Just as Armin began to settle into his new routine, an unexpected challenge emerged. The cafe, struggling under financial pressure, faced the possibility of closure. Zareen tried to hide her worries, but Armin could see it in the way she moved, the subtle tension in her otherwise calm demeanor. The news hit him harder than he expected. The thought of losing this place, this fragile sense of belonging, felt unbearable. For a moment, the old fears resurfaced, threatening to pull him back into the darkness he had fought so hard to escape. But this time, something was different. Instead of retreating, Armin chose to act. He began to think of ways to help, drawing on whatever creativity and determination he had left. He reached out to customers, shared the cafe story, and worked tirelessly to bring in more business. It wasn't easy, and there were days when it felt like his efforts were in vain. But he refused to give up, not this time. Slowly, things began to shift. More people started visiting the cafe, drawn by its warmth and authenticity. Word spread, not through grand advertising campaigns, but through genuine human connection. The cafe became a place where people didn't just come for food, but for a sense of community. And in the process, Armin discovered something profound, that sometimes, saving something else can end up saving you. Before we reach the ending, here's a special request. Comment, kindness still lives, if you believe even the smallest act can change someone's life. In the end, the cafe survived. It didn't become a massive success or a symbol of extraordinary achievement. It remained what it had always been, a simple place, filled with quiet moments and genuine connections. But for Armin, it was everything. Standing behind the counter one bright afternoon, watching the sunlight dance across the room, he realized that his story hadn't ended on that street months ago. It had simply taken a turn he never expected. And sometimes, that's all it takes, a single moment, a single act of kindness, to rewrite everything. As the day carried on, Armin caught his reflection in the glass. For the first time in a long time, he didn't see someone lost or broken. He saw someone who had endured, someone who had found a way to keep going despite everything. And in that reflection, there was something else, a quiet, unshakable belief that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was meant to be.